Hi, in this video I'm going to show the new features in Flightplan Visualizer 1.14. This version is mostly about the data. There's new features in the program, but most of the time I've spent to update all the airline information. New airlines, defunct airlines have been marked as such, and it comes with no less than 529 flight plans. And with this version, it concludes the summer of 2019 by Alpha India Group. So the next version will come with the first winter 2019-2020 flight plans. In the previous version, the linkage between flight plans and airlines was based on the ICAO code of the airline. It meant the ICAO code had to be unique. No two airlines could have the same ICAO code. In this version, I have changed it so they're instead linked by a unique identifier that's hidden from the user. But it allows me to have multiple airlines with the same ICAO code. And since I can do that, the program can now have obsolete airlines in the system. For instance, if you take Air Berlin, that went defunct in 2017, it's still in the data, but when a new airline comes along using the same ICAO codes, it will not be a problem. So for those users that still want to use old flight plans and still want to have the old airlines in the system, it's now possible. As a result of this, the format of the flight plans needed to be changed in this version. So when you start the software, it will automatically change the flight plans and it will notify you about it. So let me show you by going to enable disable flight plans. Right now I'm showing the subfolder commercial. It's active. I deactivate it and then I go to this one. In this folder I have sorry, the wrong one. In this folder I have all the flight plans from the previous installation, and they have not been updated. So by enabling this folder and starting up, we will see the splash screen. It takes some time. It's because it's doing the conversion. Once it's finished, we see this information that you will also see when you start the program. It's simply a warning informing you that the file format of the flight plans have been updated. And it's once you will see it. If I go in and make changes again, I will not be notified about it because right now all of these flight plans have already been changed to the new format. To be honest, I think most users of Flightplan Visualizer are not importing flight plans themselves. They simply rely on each new version being bundled with an update in form of obsolete flight plans being removed, defunct flight plans being marked as such, and new flight plans being added to the software. There's nothing wrong in that, and that's why I bundle the program with these updated flight plans. However, there are users who actually import flight plans themselves. For the last few versions, I have released a new version about every 2 months. And for some users, it's too long to wait. They want to import the new flight plans as soon as they become available. And for most flight plans, it's not a problem. But every now and then, a new airline comes along that I have not in my data files. Normally, when I update the flight plans, I will make the changes that's necessary. For instance, adding these new airlines. But it means that these people have to wait 2 months for the next release. So at about a month ago, I was contacted by Bruce, a user of this program that import flight plans himself. And he asked about if I could go back to the non-binary format so he could add these flight plans himself by first adding the needed airlines. I was initially not happy about this question because opening up those files, there would be a problem every time I release a new version. Everything that user had made himself would go away. So I had to rethink the problem and think about how I want to implement it. And actually, it's this suggestion from Bruce that's partly one of the reasons that regarding the flight plans, the airlines, that I changed it into being linked by a unique identifier instead of the ICAO code. And as a result of having done that, it's now in version 1.14 possible for users to add their own airlines. And here we can add all the airlines we want to. Here, let's do a fictitious. You have to select a country. And the reason you have to select the country is because when you do the leg search feature in this program, you can search by country, and the selection of country also set the region and the sub-region. So it's necessary to have that information. And you will not be able to click save until you have actually chosen a country. This load factor is for some future future features I have planned for the software. And it's simply a passenger load factor that can be set by each airline. This value is actually for the 2019 official values, that the average load factor for passenger airplanes is 82.1%. But it changed by region. So I can hit this button. Since I have selected Denmark, we are in Europe. So it will set it to the value for Europe. And as the hint text says here, that it will add, when I implement this feature, it will add 5% extra for all regional and short flights. The airlines you can add here, the user who wanted this feature, he wanted to add the real-life airlines that I had not yet added. But for instance, one user could also be if you are making a flight plan for your virtual airline and you want to display it in this software, you can add this virtual airline yourself. Also, as a new feature in this version, for all airlines, there can be a commence date and a cease date. If you know these dates, by all means, you should set them, but it's not important. What is special about the cease date is when, as soon as the cease date is set to something, the program will mark that airline as being defunct. And I will show later which implications that will have. So right now I just hit save. I have my flight plan, my airline, and you have to hit save to actually save it to the database. And now if I go along and import a flight plan, we can take this one, and I do an airline search. I now have my own airline, and it's marked with an asterisk here, so you can see which are the official airlines that comes with the program and which are the ones you have added yourself. So I simply double click it, and then I answer yes to set it as carrier and operator, and again you see the asterisk down here. We change it into something we remember and we save it. And now I have the flight. If I right-click and want to see the route info, in this window we don't have the ICAO code for the airline, but we have the name, and an asterisk is shown next to the name. If I double-click it and we see the actually leg info for this flight plan, you see here that again it's marked with an asterisk telling us it's a user-defined airline. If you want to delete your airline that you have made yourself, you simply go into the same window as before, use airlines, you delete it, and hit save. So when I go edit this flight plan, I will still see the name up here and down here as long as the program is running. But next time you start the program, that airline will no longer be available. So let's see how that looks. The flight plan is still active, and I choose to edit it. And you can see the airline have disappeared from up here. The reason it's still here is because these 3 fields are saved with the flight plan, so they are part of the flight plan. But if I do a search, you will see we no longer find this flight. And the way you will fix it would be to search for the real flight plan. If you want to change, for example, you can see this one, it has a care code ABQ. And I want to fill out these, so I say yes. And I can save it, and now I have the correct airline for this flight plan. Let's have a look at the other features that have been added in this version. In the MISC menu, we now find a menu item for unit conversion. As you can see, it's split to speed, length, weight and volume, pressure, and temperature. And the way it works is you simply enter in one of the fields. For instance, if I say 100 knot, I can either press enter or press the tab to leave this field. In this case, I just press enter. And you can see it will calculate 100 knots, what it is in miles per hour, kilometers per hour, meters per second, or feet per minute. For instance, if you get meta information where in some parts of the world they will specify the strength of the wind in meters per second. So if you get a report saying 10 meters per second, you can see that it's about 19 knots or 22 miles per hour. The same with distance. If you know the distance as 30 nautical miles, you can see that's the same as 55 kilometers. The next section is a bit special because it's both weight and volume. And the reason it's both is because of fuel. If you are loading fuel to the airplane, you can specify if it's in kilo, if it's in pounds, or if it's in liter or US gallons. The 2 up here are weight, and the 2 down here is volume. And the way it converts between weight and volume is due to this fuel density. And this fuel density specifies the weight in kilo for 1 liter of fuel. And this default value, you can see that 1 liter of fuel is specified with the weight as 0.785 kilograms. And this is what allows the conversion between weight and volume. If it's cargo, you want to do your unit conversion, you only look at the upper 2 fields, kilo or pounds. And for instance, if I know I have an airplane and I load it with 50 US gallons, and thanks to this conversion, I can see it's 148 kilograms. Also, you can do conversion of pressure. If you have one 30.06, you can see it's almost 118. I would say millibar, but otherwise it's hectopascal. And the same with temperature. If you have a meter saying it's 14 degrees Celsius, you can see that's 57 degrees of Fahrenheit. So that's the unit conversion. The changes made to the airlines that they're now handled by unique identifier, and they have a commence date and cease date. I changed the search window now. You will see that searching for airlines, you have 3 extra columns. You can see the commence date, you can see the cease date, and you can see whether or not it's in use. An airline is considered to be in use if it's used as a carrier or as operator for one or more flights. So a lot of most of the airlines that's in the data are not in use. Updating these airlines is a manual task. I have nowhere I can download information about these, so it's a manual task to add them. So there will be a lot of airline that actually is defunct, but they don't have a cease date. Slowly, by each version, I hope to add more airlines and mark airlines that have been ceased. But to be honest, I know it will never be 100% correct, because I simply don't have the time to maintain these data to have them 100% accurate. But I will do what I can. By default, when you search for airlines, it will omit the airlines that have been marked as defunct, meaning those that have a cease date. For instance, if I search for Air Berlin, you see it will not find anything. But if I asked it to include the defunct flight plans, it's here. And you can see we have a commence date when they started and a cease date when they closed down. Actually, even though it's they are ceased, they're still marked as in use. And that's because, as I said, there are still flight plans that reference flights being served by Air Berlin. If you want to see which flight it is, you can use the leg search feature. So if I close down here and I go to leg search, sorry, one, search legs. I reset, I select none, and I find Air Berlin, we have them here, and I perform the search. You can see these are the routes, and if you highlight it, you can right-click it, and say you want to view route info, and you can see it's actually this airline that's operating this. Sorry, that's the that's operating this flight. Also, another feature in the new search window, or the, should I say, the revised search window. If I go to airline search, for example, Air Baltic, if you don't know if it's with a space or not, before you had to do one search, and if, for example, you had to search with a space, and if that found nothing, you had to search again with the space. Now the spaces you enter in the search text are ignored. So I can simply enter Air Baltic, and you see, even though there's not a space, it will find it. So it makes, so with this version, it will be more easy to find what you're searching for. Likewise, this version will also ignore the diacritics. That's the accents you have above the letters. For example, if I want to search for this one, you see I enter it here without the diacritic, the letter you have here. It will find it even though I don't enter that with that diacritic. Again, this is to make the search more easy. I have shown it here searching for airlines. It will be the same searching for aircraft or searching for airports. If we open the search form to search for airports, as a new feature, it will no longer search for the state. You can choose to search for the state, but the reason I decided to remove it here is because, for example, if you want to search for airports for the city of New York, it's easy to find, whereas if you include the state, it will be more or less impossible to find those. So therefore, it's default to only search for ICAO code, IATA code, name, city, and country. But as I just showed you, you can include the state if you want to. Another small change in the software is that this menu or feature, it have been renamed. Before it was called favorite aircraft, but I have renamed it into favorite aircraft types, because what you select here is not a specific aircraft, it's a type of aircraft you select. And that name change goes into the leg search also, where it now says aircraft type. In the settings menu, I added another feature, and that's to force. Normally, the splash screen is forced to be topmost. It has been like that since the first release of the program. Whenever it load the flight plans, I can force it to load something by going in here. Now the splash screen is, you can toggle it on or off if it should be forced on top. For instance, if you're running Flight Simulator and you start this program, normally that splash screen would be shown on top of Flight Simulator as long as it was reading data. But now you can remove this check mark and it will no longer be forced to be topmost, meaning that you could have other windows displayed on top of it. Another feature that's also meant to those that run this software on the same PC as the Flight Simulator is you can now set the affinity mask if you want to. The affinity mask is limiting the software to only run on certain cores of your CPU. For instance, I have a program called Process Lasso, and when I start that and I run my Flight Simulator, it will automatically set my Flight Simulator to only run on cores 2 to 7. So I can use core 0 and 1 for other purpose. So if you're using Flightplan Simulator, you could set it up like this and only allow it to run on core 0 and core 1. My processor, I have 8 cores, numbered from 0 to 7. But if you have more or less cores, this window will affect it. When you have selected specific cores, the program will be limited to only run on those cores. But if you, like default, have not selected any cores, it means you can have outside program controls which cores the program should run. As I said, I use that program called Process Lasso, and I could set that up to always move this program to run on core 0 and 1, and then I would not need to set it in here. But in case you want to, it's now possible with this version to force it to run on specific cores of your CPU. I would say it's only beneficial when you do things in Flightplan Visualizer that are processor heavy. For instance, reading all flight plans or generating some of the reports will be processor heavy, but running the program in the background and double-clicking an airport to see information about that airport, it really don't take much CPU power. You can see here I have it. This is my video recording. as long as I'm not doing anything in Flightplan Visualizer, it's using next to nothing. So limiting it to run on specific course is not a big deal, but at least now you have the option to select this if you want to. So these were the changes for 1.14. Thank you.